Hi, we are the Duffys, and we're here at the Browns in Playa Hermosa. And we want to tell you a little bit about our experience with Costa Rica. This is our third trip down here. First one was on vacation back in 2004. We fell in love with the country. We liked the people. We had not been to the Central Valley. We stayed primarily out here in Guanacaste. And following that, we came down in 2011 on our first due diligence tour. We took George Lundquist's tour for 3 days and covered the valley with him, and then we came out to the beach and spent about another 4 or 5 days with the Browns, who we become close friends with, and we enjoy that relationship. And we're back again. This is our third trip, as I said, and this is our second due diligence trip. And our primary mission on this trip was to decide where we want to live, not specific housing itself, but location. So the big quandary for us was, do we want to live at the beach or do we want to live in the valley? And both have pros and cons.
I'm Dina Duffy, and we both lived in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. area. And as with Tom, we came to Costa Rica several years ago, strictly on a vacation, fell in love with the country, and wanted to learn more about it. We've always wanted to think that we could try to retire earlier than 65, because with our age differentials, I'm 58. You know, we want to be able to have an adventure, some good times, and the other real overriding concern was we didn't feel we could do that in the U.S. because of the cost of health care. We're not eligible for Medicare until 65, which is a 5-year lag for us, and it just wasn't going to work well financially.
Can you guys go into a little bit more detail and about as for the reasons you've decided to go ahead and move to Costa Rica?
Well, let me say one thing. We don't have children, so we have a lot more options in taking up and leaving without a lot of guilt. I think that's one of the issues a lot of people grapple with who have children and a large family. Both of our families are fairly small. We do both have mothers who are in their 80s, so that is a concern that we're grappling with, and probably one of the major things we're dealing with now is to make sure they're taken care of and in an environment where they have support, and we're working on that more so with my mom, because her mom is pretty well in a good support system right now. One of the things we really liked about Costa Rica versus where we're living now is we've almost found more friends down here in our last 2 visits than we know at home, and we've been living in our house for 20 years. So there's a lot of acquaintances back there, and your neighbors come out and you say hello, but there's not a lot of deep relationships that I think will be really, again, one of the things we're looking for in life, because we had that in California and we miss it living in Virginia. And we're looking, and that's one of the things that is going into the equation of where we move, the type of friends we're going to find in particular areas. When we come down here, we definitely want to try and assimilate as much as we can into the local culture and society. We don't want to live in a gated gringo community and isolate ourselves from the local surroundings. Then why move to a foreign country? That doesn't make sense to me. And there's a lot of people who do that. They basically want to recreate America in another country. So that's not our goal. We want to come down here and assimilate. I think some of the other driving forces is how beautiful it is down here, and we think we could live a great life, a healthy life. We're into tennis, and not that we're great, we're not the greatest shape, but we try and stay fit and do things like that. And there's so many opportunities here, even if we lived in the valley, to run to the beach for a weekend, to go to a rainforest, to do some fun stuff, keeping mind of our budget, of course. But there's so much to see down here in such a small country. That's one of the reasons we like Costa Rica as well. Basically,
I agree with most of that. I'm very into nature. Even where we are in our little suburban area, I try to have my birds and the bird feeders and the bird baths and suet, and try to encourage, that type of. There's nothing more peaceful for me than to see, birds fluttering around, or the incredible myriad of hummingbirds and butterflies here, and all of the beautiful lush flowers, and it's amazing.
I'm presuming perhaps you've looked at other countries in which to live. What can you give us a little bit of an idea what other countries you've looked at, and to what reason have you decided to narrow things down to Costa Rica?
We probably haven't been as actively in research mode of other countries. We did look at Panama. We didn't visit it, but we did a lot of extensive research about Panama. And one of the things that I felt was a no-go for us was the extreme heat and humidity. The fact that if you look at the skyline of Panama, to me it's like Miami. It's huge.
Panama City, yeah.
A big city environment. They also have less topography than Costa Rica. They have some beautiful places in the mountains, but it's a good 7-hour drive away from the city. I'm not sure, I mean, I know the roads are great, but still, you're isolated. They have more of a rainy season, which I'm not, I'd like to see more sunny area. I've heard, I haven't experienced it myself, but I've heard that the people are not as welcoming as the Costa Ricans have been.
Well, also, some of the things that attracted us to Panama was they have a much more robust pensionata program, or an incentive program to bring people into the country. Apparently Costa Rica had this type of program years ago and have eliminated it. And the other thing is that's attractive about Panama is the abundance of products that you can get down there with not the high import duties that you see in Costa Rica. So we kind of weighed that. I mean, that was something that was a very, you know, if you had to do pros and cons, that would be a very strong pro. And then if you're looking for, you know, the eternal spring type of places, there's really only a few to choose from, and one of them, of course, I'm sure a lot of people have heard, is Boquete. But then again, you're 7 hours from Panama City, so if you need to run to Panama City for whatever, it's quite a hike to do that. So again, as Dina said, there's just so many more microclimates here and different areas that you can choose from that Panama didn't offer. It offered all of the, you know, the material stuff, but not the other things we were looking for.
Can you go into a little bit of detail about the kind of research and planning you've done in order to make this trip?
Well, when we started thinking about moving, we started the usual search through the internet. We started Googling things, you know, Costa Rica, living in Costa Rica, retiring in Costa Rica, cost of life in Costa Rica, and we've gotten many, many websites popped up. So, and they link to links, other links, so it's like opening a Pandora's box and all of this information poured out. Now, as we read through the information, there was also a lot of contradictory information that we were running across. And, you know, so you had to take certain things with a grain of salt, because, believe me, people, everything you read on the internet is not true. And we have found so many surprises when we came down here, positive surprises, where we heard things, oh, you'll never find this in Costa Rica, or that's too expensive, or there's a ton of crime. It just ain't so. I mean, it just ain't so in our experiences, in talking to people who live down here. So that was eye-opening for us. That was almost like an aha moment for us, that we said, wow, we can find lemons, or we can find whatever. And you know, you read on all these websites, oh, forget about it, you'll never find this thing, bring everything with you. Of course, we found Boomer's site, which was invaluable, watching all the videos. It's almost like a dummy's guide to move to Costa Rica. You all know those dummy books. It's kind of like that.
What I have found that was very helpful was the time we've spent here interacting not only with the expats that we've come across, but also with Ticos, who have been very fluent and very helpful in trying to help us understand about, you know, what it's like, you know, their way of doing things. And it's been invaluable. It's been wonderful. And for me, I think one of the most valuable lessons you can have is to learn to go with the flow. We had a wonderful experience of that when we first got here, the first day we were here, of some bureaucracy, and we weathered it really well. I mean, you got to have a good sense of humor. I think you just need to know that it's not going to be the same as what you experienced in the U.S. or wherever you come from, and being adaptable, I think, is the key thing that will make you either make or break your experience of living not only in Costa Rica but anywhere else. So patience, paciencia, y and having, you know, have a good personality and be curious. People love, if you ask questions, they love to share things. It's not a big deal here.
Tom and Dina, can you go into a little bit of detail about how you guys differ in your concepts, your thought processes about moving to Costa Rica? Where do you guys differ in your goals, objectives, things like that?
For me, it's a struggle between having maybe a little bit of down fun time. Like for me, the beach is very appealing in that regard because not only is it gorgeous, but the road infrastructure here and the way of life supports more like the type of entertaining, not that we did a great deal, but we were evening entertainers. When you work all day, it's hard to host a brunch. So, you know, the things that we would do would be to have barbecue dinners or game nights, things like that, which for me in the Central Valley, because of the road structures in many of those areas, most people aren't out after dark. The towns are very close together, so you can have a nice dinner out, and it's only 5 minutes to get back here to Playa Hermosa if you're in Coco, or that type of thing. So the idea of being a beach bum for a little bit of time is not, you know, it's not unappealing
It's appealing.
to me to do that.
I burn and
Irish
I
kind
turn
of
lobster red in about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
So.
and I got the olive skin, so I don't burn very easily. But anyway, the appeal of Costa Rica too is I don't see myself sitting back on a rocking chair reading a book all day, and that's my retired life. I want to have some adventures, yes, and I also want to see if I can give back, and that is maybe if I'm fluent enough in Spanish to help kids here learn English, that would be valuable for me to help my Spanish accelerate.
I'm frankly looking for a cooler environment, not a cold environment. I don't want to walk around in sweaters and long sleeve shirts. We're going to move to Central America. I want it to be a tropical lifestyle, but not a oppressively hot lifestyle. So again, that's one of the things we're grappling with. As far as other differences, since I've been in somewhat of a semi-retirement state, I think it might be an easier adjustment for me coming down here, because I'm sort of, you know, for the last year or so, I've sort of eased into it already, where Dina's going to be coming from a very stressful, uptight environment to boom, now she's retired. What does she do? How does she deal with that? So I think it might take her a little bit longer to get into that mellow mode and not be so, you know, type A, exactly, which is what you are now. Right?
I am.
We don't have too many major differences. You know, we've been married 28 years, so I know how to compromise. So
I know how to bite my tongue.
Right. So we're pretty close on that stuff, and I think whatever decision we make, I mean, I could certainly live at the beach for a year if we have to, and that's fine with me, and I'll adapt. As we said, we live in Washington, D.C., and which is oppressively hot in the summers. You just learn to go with the flow, as Dina said. You go with the flow. But, and again, the great thing is we're not going to buy, we're going to rent. So if we don't like it, we haul our asses out of there and go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Can you try to boil down for us what your single biggest reason is for wanting to retire offshore and not in the United States?
I think the single biggest reason is the healthcare aspect for me. Would give us the ability to not have to wait until full retirement age. the health care here would be affordable enough for us, and at the same time gives us the opportunity to have an adventure that is totally different than being in the United States.
The quality of life here would be better for us than if we retired in the United States, I think, because I think we can stretch our dollar here. Not that it's the cheapest place to live. It isn't. Costa Rica, there's other places in Central America to live that are cheaper, but it certainly is significantly less than what it would cost us to retire in the United States. We would go through our money quicker. We would go through our investments faster, drawing them down faster. By moving to a country like Costa Rica, we certainly can speed up our retirement process. And we want to retire when we're in good health, when we can do fun things and active things, and you know, not retire when we're ready to use our canes and our walkers. Well, what's the point, you know? Put a gun in my mouth, so I'm not ready for that. But when you start checking things off, it starts honing it down to lesser and lesser places, and that's what's driving a lot of this decision.
Can you tell me a little bit about any fears or concerns that you may have about moving offshore?
My biggest fear, and guilt in a sense, because I think a lot of times guilt follows fear, is my mother. My mother, I am her only son, and I am right now her primary caregiver, go-to person for issues and, you know, monetary issues to help her with, not financially, but I help her pay her bills online. I run up there, you know, 3, 4, 5 times a year. She lives about 5 hours away, and fix things for her that she can't handle and take her to doctors. I was up there just a week before we came down to deal with an issue. So that's one of the big issues, is my mother and the guilt associated with leaving. And again, you know, coming down here, we're not saying we're coming down here for the rest of our lives. We're looking at maybe 5 to 7 years. We don't know. So we're not saying we're never going back to the United States again. So we're not looking in forever and ever issues. So I think thinking that way, it's not like you're completely cutting your ties to your home, to your family, and so forth.
You know, there's going to be differences, and as he said, I am kind of a type A person, and impatience, I think, will be my biggest lesson, to have to curb that and make sure that tranquilo becomes my mantra. And my other concern, I have a mom too, but I have a couple brothers and a sister that are going to be there to support her, so I have less fear of that.
And I think it's almost going to be tougher for them than for us, frankly. I think the adjustment on their end is going to be a little bit more intense than it is for us, because we've sort of already made the decision, and they're still grappling with it.
Another concern is, you know, just the amount of stuff that will need to happen in order for us to make that move down here. There's his business to wrap down, and he's got a lot of props and, oh my God, things like that to deal with. And then, you know, household goods and what do we bring, what don't we bring?
Selling
trying
the house.
to time the house so we sell it so we can get out of there. And, you know, logistically, I think is going to be interesting and challenging. So there's that, and we have a dog. You know, we have our Dixie, and we would be bringing her with us, and, you know, to have her come down on a flight and making sure she's safe and everything's good is another, you know, little bit of a concern, to make sure that happens safely. So, you know, it's the details. I think sometimes the devil is in the details, and we'll just have to take it one step at a time and not let it overwhelm us. A couple tips that I would like to offer up is that if you're planning to move to a different country, make sure that when you come down here, it's not a vacation. It's a fact-finding mission, it's due diligence, it's immersion, and to try to really experience the lifestyle, the area, the geography, the weather, and get to know for yourself. If you can, if you have the means to do it, come at different times. Like when the first time we came, it was just into the dry season, so we didn't experience that much rain. This time we made it a point to come at rainy season because we wanted to feel for ourselves the intervals of rain, the tropical deluge, the how the roads become after rains like that, so that we could feel comfortable knowing that we still love it just as much, or maybe we don't. Another thing is to get to know the folks that have been here, whether it's through blogs or Skyping, or get some tips from them. They're the ones that have been here, and I tell you, it's invaluable to get the feedback, the experiences that other people who have come before us, and they're so open and honest, and they just really want to see you succeed. And make sure that you experience it not as on a vacation, but as this is where my new home might be, so I want to know what kind of grocery stores there are, what are the doctors like, the dentists, things that you're going to need down here so that you're comfortable with your new experience.
Take everything with a grain of salt, filter everything that you read and hear from people, because 50% of it is probably crap. So I think when you're looking and you're researching, you know, you really have to kind of think about where's the information coming from. If you go on real estate sites, other sites that are selling Costa Rica, they're going to paint everything in rose-colored glasses. I mean, you know, this is paradise, it's great, there's no problems, come on down, it's easy, and it's not that way. And then you get the other extremes where you go on some of the forums and everybody's bitching about everything all the time. Well, why are they still in Costa Rica if it's so bad? So you have to weigh those two extremes and kind of come up with your own opinions. Don't be led by, you know, a ring through your nose by following a particular proponent. So you've got to do your own thinking, you've got to make your own decisions, and you absorb that information, you filter it, you take out what you don't believe is true. And again, it's imperative that you come down here and you look yourself, because that's really when the lights go on and you shine bright lights on those information pieces that you've gathered to see if it's true or not. And as I said in the beginning, we found so many things not to be what people said they were. So, and even talking with expats, you're going to get different opinions, because some are going to love it more than others. So you really have to decide, is this for me? How can I live down here? Will this bother me? Will it not bother me? You have to personalize everything you read and hear and not follow it blindly. And so I think that's would be my tip, is to come in with open eyes.
Tom and Dina, I want to thank you guys very much for doing this interview with us. Have a great, safe trip back and great, safe travel back. And we're looking forward to seeing you when you finally come here to Costa Rica.
Thanks, Andy. Can't wait to get down here. We're on a mission,
Yep.
and we're enjoying this. And to say thank you is
thanks, Andy and Fran.
Thanks, Andy and Fran.
We've had a great time with you guys.
We love Costa Rica. We love it, and pura vida.
Pura vida.